Classic Plus just got leaked, and it's real this time. And you're asking, how am I so sure? Because they leaked it the same way they leaked Classic in 2019, TBC Classic after that, Wrath of the Lich King Classic after that. Then how they leaked Season of Discovery and Cataclysm Classic. And what is that leak, you're asking? It's very simple. The survey that in Classic Plus is coming. They sent out a survey, people started answering those questions, and then a couple months later, boom, they officially announced that game mode. When Season of Discovery was first leaked in these surveys a couple months ago, back in October and September, we thought that was Classic Plus. Turns out to be Season of Discovery. Now, another survey just hit the towers, and this survey is a lot more in-depth on Plus. And if you want future proof that it is definitely coming, the last time they did this was Nostalrius back in 2018, where they took it down, and then guess what came out in 2019? That's right, Classic 2019. And guess who they recently just took down? Turtle WoW. So based off that fact, this survey, and all the information about the previous surveys, Classic Plus is coming. And it's coming pretty goddamn soon. So what is it? Let's deep dive into every step of the survey and why it's actually Classic Plus and not just another season. So the very first point is newer unexplored storylines and lore. And this is probably everyone's biggest wish for Classic Plus. They want more Classic in the world of Classic. They don't want to leave. They don't want to go to TBC or Wrath of the Lich King or Cataclysm or anywhere else. They just want more content inside Classic Plus. For example, Grimbatol and the dragons and dwarves and the void corruption in that mountain. On top of that, they want Hyjal. They want to go to the Hyjal of Classic, that mysterious zone that people have been dreaming about for decades. Not the Cataclysm version. They want the version of Hyjal where there's a ginormous dead body of Archimonde laying in the smack dab middle of that well tree. And not just that, but people want to go to all these exciting locations such as Gilligam's Isle, the Isle of Dr. Lepidus. They want to go to Zuldar and Kultiras. Not the Kultiras from BFA, but the OG Kultiras with the Admiral and all the shenanigans that come with that. But that's just one of many points in the survey. The next one ties directly into this, and it is new reputations and rewards. And like I said, it's essentially tied to all the new locations and storylines. For example, Grimbatol. People would love for there to be a Wildhammer reputation tied with that. The Wildhammer dwarves trying to reclaim their ancestral homeland for the Alliance. On the opposite side, you have the Dragonmaw. Now, the OG Dragonmaw, evil, vile people. But in Cataclysm, the Dragonmaw joined Garrosh's horde. Now, in this case, there's no Garrosh because we're not going to TBC. So if they are doing Grimbatol, the Dragonmaw that joined the horde would have to be an offshoot of the Dragonmaw. Because the Dragonmaw are currently still, lore-wise, I'm pretty sure, fighting in Grimbatol. So you would have the dwarves and the orcs fighting for their ancestral homelands. Now, this is the ancestral homeland of the dwarves. Well, the second ancestral homeland of the Wildhammer dwarves, because the first one was back when the Dwarven Empire was one empire, then it split. And this is not a lore video, nobody cares. For the purpose of player conflict and faction warfare, the Horde and the Alliance both have a reputation here. Now, Grimbatol might be a PvP-esque location, but Hyjal isn't. The Cenarian Circle in this location is just an expanded version of the Cenarian Circle reputation. They would add more rewards to it, more quest lines, other ways to farm it. Heck, maybe they'll do a secondary Cenarian Circle that's trying to reclaim Hyjal from the demonic influences that still linger there. Because guess what? There is a lot of demonic influence left over in Hyjal. Just because we defeated Archimonde doesn't mean the demonic legions are gone. Pathway to Hyjal is completely covered with demons because the demons have locked down Hyjal. The Night Elves, lore-wise, are currently fighting off the demons and cleansing Hyjal. So when you consider all of that little information, there's plenty of storylines and plot points for the Cenarian Circle to have both the Horde and the Alliance team up to clap some demon cheeks. Now, if you left it up to me, I would spend the next 35 minutes giving you a reputation, a faction, a storyline for every single piece of OG scrap vanilla content. But I don't want to make this video 2 hours long. But if you're interested in a video like that, let me know down in the comments below. And now moving on to the next point, that's right, my subscriber count. Please subscribe, my vanity and ego need it. I need big number because big number mean I'm good creator. So we're going to move on to the third point on the survey. New/reimagined raid. That's right, new raids or reimagined raids. Now, in this case, there's plenty of raid opportunities right from the get-go. For example, the most iconic ones, Karazhan Crypts and Karazhan Tower. People have been wanting that shit for decades. So just off the get-go, there's already 2 amazing ideas that Blizzard could pull off. But that's not all, because whilst we already know about Karazhan Crypts and Karazhan Tower, people want more than that. But did you know that in Hyjal, for example, there is a raid icon? There was meant to be a raid in the location of where Illidan's prison is. And that's right, the Barrow Dens was meant to be an OG raid. They ran out of time well before they even got close to finishing it. In OG Classic, the raid location there is just a clone of a Nixia's lair. There's no boss in there, there's no mechanic in there. It's clearly not meant to be a Nixia's lair, it's just a placeholder they put there. So in this timeline, in this Classic Plus, this would be finished. We would actually get to go inside of it, go down into the Barrow Dens that connects with the Timbermore faction. That's where all those tunnels were originally meant to connect all around the world. It was meant to connect the Hyjal, to the Moonglade, to Darkshore, to Winterspring. If you look at this map on screen right now, you can see what the OG version and vision of Vanilla Kalimdor was meant to be. Again, this is completely changed. OG Vanilla was meant to be level 70, but the devs clearly ran out of time because, again, Outland was meant to be in the game, Demon Hunters were meant to be in the game, so many little things were meant to be in the game, and the devs didn't even have a fraction of the time they needed to have even a half the content they wanted in Vanilla. Let me know if you guys also want a video on this map. Oh, there's so many videos I could make. God damn, I am such a conspiracy theorist, but I love it. I love Classics mystery so much. But we're going to move on to the next point. New/reimagined dungeons. Now, there's so much they could do with this. There's so many different locations, especially after they've used Demonfall Canyon. Now, Demonfall Canyon was a cool idea. They used an instance portion of Ashenvale to make a whole new dungeon, and they could pretty much do this anywhere in the world. They could pick out parts of Grimbatol, they could pick out parts of EPL, they could pick out wherever they want and make a dungeon location. And that's the cool part of instance technology. Anything you can imagine can be a dungeon, can be a raid. For example, kind of a humorous idea, but they could make a Hogger dungeon. It's an open world instance in Westfall. The Horde would access it from somewhere else like a teleporter. And you go in there, you have to stop Hogger's null invasion of Stormwind, hundreds of gnolls, all the bosses, all the cool little gimmicky things. And sure, it sounds funny, but it's also in line with that classic spirit. I need to go back and clarify that all 4 of these points so far are 100% something that should be added for Classic Plus. Now, it's not something that should be added for Classic Era or for Classic Fresh. All of the things that I'm talking about so far should solely be a Classic Plus situation. I know some parts of the conversation, it does ask people doing these surveys if they would like things like this in Classic Era or Classic Fresh, and the answer should be a resounding no. Classic Era and Classic Fresh should be OG Classic, minimal changes, slight quality of life things here or there, but for the most part, don't touch them. Add all this new and interesting stuff to Classic Plus in the same vein old school RuneScape does, but leave Classic Era and Classic Fresh alone. Moving on though, we have new/future races pulled back. What does that mean? For example, Blood Elves, Draenei, Worgen, Goblins, things of that nature being brought to the Classic world. And in this case, I do think they should bring Draenei and Blood Elves, but they could also just do, for example, Ogre/Mok'Nathal for the Horde and High Elves for the Alliance. That way they don't have to bring in Draenor or any of those things yet. They can leave that for a future version of Classic Plus, maybe a year or 2 or 3 into the Classic Plus lifecycle. They could even let us vote for it. But if they choose to just bring in Draenei or Blood Elves, it's a very clean version of just importing those characters in. I'm not saying that's easy dev power, but it's an easy way to just bring in new races. It gives the Horde Paladins and the Alliance Shamans, but still, I do think they should do new races from the get-go instead of old races brought back. So if they are going to open Classic Plus, they should do Ogre/Mok'Nathal and High Elves. Now, if you want to add Paladin or whatnot, that is the next point, and I'll cover that in a bit. They should just do it to existing classes. And as I said, new/future classes pulled back. The next point on the survey, yes. But they should do it kind of carefully. they shouldn't bring in Death Knights or Demon Hunters or things like that from the get-go. That stuff should come in the future, but not immediately, not fast, not on Classic Plus's launch. I know some people might love to play a Demon Hunter or a Death Knight, but it just doesn't make sense for that initial Classic Plus to have those classes. Now, I am going to go a bit down the list before I continue on to talk about new/future race class combinations, because I was just mentioning that. And in this particular case, yes, Classic Plus should have new race/class combinations. For example, Shaman Dwarves and Tauren Paladin or Troll Druids and things of that nature. Other classes should be able to play and like even out equilibrium between the factions a little bit. Maybe a couple new rogue specs, maybe a couple new hunter specs. And when I say specs, I mean new races being able to play those classes. So there's just a little more flavor and gives people more of a reason to run alt. I know a lot of people that only play Forsaken or only play Dwarf or only play Human because of aesthetic reasons. And because of that, giving people slightly more flexibility is good, but it should make sense gameplay-wise and lore-wise. I don't want to see, for example, in this case, a Human Druid. Should not be in-game. But Forsaken Paladin should be in-game because there are plenty of lore examples of there being Forsaken Paladin. But again, that's just my personal opinion. Some people might have completely different opinions on what that means for Classic Plus. But moving back onto where I was at the list, minor class changes. Now, how do we as the players want minor class changes in Classic Plus? And in my personal opinion, I think they should do tweaks to the game that make certain classes and specs playable. For example, Ret Paladin, Prot Paladin, Boomkin, Shadow Priest. These are just examples at the top of my head that are essentially terrible feeling classes in Classic. In Classic Plus, they should all be playable and should all feel fun. But I don't want it to go the Season of Discovery way where everything is beyond overpowered, everything is broken, everything is stupidly strong. I think Classic Plus should have toned down gameplay. People should still be able to play the specs and classes they want, but it should not be obscenely broken. We are already doing almost Sunwell levels of DPS, and we haven't even gone into Molten Core yet. So, as cool as that is, the dev should be a little more careful with how much power they give people. Make the Boomkin work, but the Boomkin doesn't need Starfall, doesn't need all these extra abilities. Wrath's mana cost should be lowered, and they should have some slightly more MP4. Wrath's mana should be lowered, and they should have slightly more MP5. So the Boomkin should be able to operate and do damage and maybe even be a little competitive here or there. But the Boomkin should not be one-shotting people for 3,000 with the Star Surge from 40 yards away. So again, just little things like that. Minor class changes and balance, absolutely. But not making everybody broke. Now, this next one's an interesting thing. Returning player re-entry feature. Now, what exactly does that mean? Blizzard wants to provide an easy onboarding experience for returning players. And in my opinion, that's okay. It just depends on how much manpower they put into it. What does that look like in-game? Is this more of a, if you've missed 3 phases of Classic Plus, so you've missed Molten Core all the way through Nax, and now you're coming back for the Karazhan phase? Should people be given like a welcome back package where their gear is baseline new level 60 gear, almost equivalent to say AQ gear? I don't agree with that. But again, I don't know what they mean exactly by a re-entry feature. Re-entry could mean many things, but I'm okay with them making new players be able to return without having to do 100+ hours of grinding to just get ready to even raid. I have to be clear, it depends on what this looks like. As of now, I am neutral about it. I'm not for or against it because I don't know what the devs are planning with this particular feature. As for the next point, new player experience from the get-go, I do think that they should potentially add like a 30-minute tutorial island for people if they want it. It's going to take dev power, it's going to take dev time, and it's not exactly what real existing players want. But I know a lot of new players that try to play Classic and get overwhelmed, or just try to play Retail and get overwhelmed because the tutorials is honestly terrible. For a game this large, the tutorial should actually be half decent. So do I think there should be a tutorial? Yes. Maybe make the introduction a little better. I don't know what they would do for this, but I'm not against this particular feature. I do think it does have a place, especially if they're making a full-on massive Classic Plus. There's going to be millions upon millions of people coming back to try Classic Plus because everybody's excited about what that means. It's essentially a WoW 1.5. So to this feature in particular, yes, I am on board with it. Now, this next feature in the survey is actually a cool one. New group events and features. And now what exactly does that mean? It probably means events like Ashen Veil, STV, and Blackrock Eruption. And I'm actually excited for this because I think it is a good thing for Classic Plus to have events like this. I just hope they learn from all the data they've gathered in Season of Discovery and make the events and systems in Classic Plus slightly more better in tune, because the player base is very exploity from the get-go. You've all heard this: exploit early, exploit often, because that's how the player base plays the game. So in this particular case, I do think the devs should make new events. People actually enjoy them. Ashen Veil was critically acclaimed. STV was moderately acclaimed. BRE is quotation marks fun, but holy shit, people hate the mountain. But they did make everything better. Piecemeal by piecemeal, patch by patch, fix by fix, all the events did become better and better. So for Classic Plus, adding new events is actually good for the game. But I know a lot of people have controversial opinions about this, but the devs have learned from their mistakes, and the incursion technology with this instance world locations is good for the game, potentially for new dungeons and raid locations, like I said, for example, world bosses. But don't do events like incursions for Classic Plus. The player base will riot, and the player perception is already somewhat negative after Phase 3, and even though Phase 4 is amazing, Classic Plus shouldn't go through the same kind of situations that Season of Discovery did go through. It should start off stronger and smoother in context. Ongoing class tuning / polish. Absolutely. This is a must-have for Classic Plus. I don't even know why they're asking this question. What's the point of a forever permanent game mode where they stop updating classes? That would make no sense, especially as they keep adding new items, new phases, new content. They would have to have polish and balance updates. Because in my opinion, classic classes should never be perfect. Honestly, every class should suck at something. If Boomkin is fixed, Boomkin should suck at AoE but do really good single target damage. Mage specs should have some of them be really good single target, some of them be terrible AoE. And then some of them should be amazing AoE but terrible single target. Certain tank specs should be amazing at boss tanking but mediocre at dungeon tanking. The whole concept of Classic is your class and spec being good at unique activities and unique things. Nothing about Classic Plus should be uniform. A warrior tank, a prop paladin, and a shaman tank, and a bear tank should all have different strengths and weaknesses, because that's what makes Classic classic. So in my opinion, absolutely balancing is a must-have, and anytime a class gets too strong, don't nerf it into the ground. Stop buffing it for a couple of phases. Let that class get weaker naturally while you buff other classes. Guild banks. Now that's the next tab, and in my personal opinion, absolutely. Again, like a lot of the features I talked about, they should introduce this to Classic Plus because it's definitely a must-have. But they should under no circumstances introduce this to Classic Era. And if they do plan on introducing anything to Classic Era or Classic Fresh, it should be done via a vote where everybody votes in-game. One vote per account per max level character. So if you have one account with like 7 max level characters, you only get 1 vote. And if you have another account that has 0 max level characters, that account is not allowed to vote. The only people voting on new features to Classic Era and Classic Fresh should be people that are actively playing and consuming the game. They should also make it so that you've played 40 hours in the past month, so when they do a vote, people that haven't played in months can't log in and just start trying to vote. So when new things do get added to Classic Era / Classic Fresh, it should be done via vote in-game, similar to old school RuneScape. And this continues on to the next feature that they're talking about adding, the Collections UI. And the Collections UI is definitely something they should add to Classic Plus. Maybe not from the get-go, because from the get-go, managing your bank space, your personal inventory, your alt, your bank alt, etc. is something cool and adds flavor to the game. You have to manage what you carry, what you hold on to. But eventually, as Classic Plus goes on longer and longer, like old school RuneScape going on for multiple years, having that Collections UI actually isn't bad for the game and its health. Again, it just depends on when they add it, how they add it, and the player's feedback and reaction to it. Raiding through Molten Core into Blackwing Lair, into ZG, Oni, and other little raids, and then AQ20, AQ40, Nax, just by that point, you've collected so many different tiers and gear and like outfits that your inventory is just going to be full and packed if you're trying to carry everything. Now, should they add transmog to the game? That's a whole different question. I'm not sure if they ever should. But should you be allowed to collect the appearances for later on? Absolutely. Again, it's a very difficult conversation to have because being able to collect, for example, mounts, pets, and toys, I'm 100% on board with that, and I have no qualms or problems with that particular feature of the collections UI. But transmog is something that kind of throws off the game. I like being able to log on to Classic and see what people have equipped because I can tell the gear they have on. I can look at somebody and go, oh, that's a tier 2 paladin, that's a tier 3 warrior, that's a tier 1 druid, that's a tier this, that's a 0.5 this, that's warbringer gloves, that's this, that, whatever. Not being able to see that because people have transmog on would take away from that classic feeling. So yes to the collections UI, debating on exactly how they implemented what they add and all the features that come with it. The next thing though is going to be very short, dual specializations. Yes, I'm not even going to discuss it, add it to the game, move on. I don't even want to discuss this. Classic Plus 100% needs this. Heck, I bet you good money that all the people in Classic Era and Classic Fresh would also want this. And if you gave it to them as a vote, they would all vote yes on it. Now we're getting towards the end of the first part of the survey. And we have the next part, improve social features. And that's kind of a rough one because people do want improved social features, but people have a very negative perception of, for example, looking for raid, looking for group, and dungeon finder. So should they add improved social features? Definitely. Should they make it so that you can queue up for a dungeon and get teleported to it? Hell no. What they should add is LFG. And what that means is you open your LFG tab, you click on the dungeons, raids, PvP, or questing/open world tab. They should also add a services tab underneath that, but I'll talk about that in a second. And you click on the dungeons tab, you create group, you go scholar mounts, this, what we're doing. People then queue up for it, and then you can accept or decline people from there. So you don't have to spam /5 or /2 to find people for your dungeon groups or your raid groups or things of that nature. Now, as I said, there should be no instant clicking a button and finding a group for you. There should be no teleporting you to the instance. This should just be a streamlined way of finding people to do content with. You still have to put the effort in, you still have to whisper people, you still have to do all of that. Just make it slightly smoother of an experience. I am 100% down for that feature. Now, talking about the services tab, I am so sick of warlock summons. I'm so sick of buy gold. Now, I haven't seen those in a while, or GDKP messages, for example, but having services, for example, I'm selling this item, I'm selling this, whatever, trading gold and Cataclysm for SoD, all those messages should be stuck in the services channel. And if you post that shit in any other channel, you should get a 72-hour chat ban or game ban, straight up. Now, if you do it once, okay, no big deal. If you start spamming, get banned. I can't look at trade. I can't look at LFG channels in game because it's literally 75 warlock summons. Again, I'm going to be a hypocrite, but I use warlock summons all the time, so I guess it's my fault as well. But there shouldn't be spamming LFG with summons requests. Nonetheless, that is what they should do with the LFG system, or these improved social features. And again, talking about the guild UI system, they should definitely add that into the game for Classic Plus. They should not add it into Classic Era or Classic Fresh because the people don't want that. But for somebody that's planning on playing all the way through, for example, Nax into Karazhan, into Hyjul, Gilneas, whatnot have you, having slightly improved features to make the game slightly easier to like track and whatnot, it's a good feature to have. But they don't need it in Classic Era or Fresh, so don't give them shit they don't ask for. And then the final point is an improved PvP honor system. And this is an easy yes. Having no decay and SoD is perhaps one of the best features they've been able to add. Now, I will clarify with, there is a downside to that once you're rank 14, you're done PvPing, period. Why bother? Because if you're rank 14, you'll be exalted with AB, Warsong Gulch, and AV. So you have no reason to PvP anymore, unless you're just doing it for fun. So, my feature and my theory is they should add seasonal rank 14s. That means Season 1 Grand Marshal High Warlord is the regular green, golden, the golden red gear. And then Season 2 is a slightly different outfit. then season 3 is a different outfit, then season 4 is a different outfit, and they should do one season every 6 months or every 12 months. I don't know, maybe even every 18 months because of how much honor you need to hit rank 14. But it would make the PvP scene constantly lively, and on top of that, they should add an arena system. Again, classic PvP has its ups and downs. Some people love it, most people hate it, but it is classic PvP system. But they should also make it that the only decaying rank is the newly added rank 15, which was meant to be in the OG Classic, but they ran out of time when they were trying to make the game back in 2004. That's right, it was meant to be Defender of Stormwind, Protector of Thunderbluff, yada yada yada. Each city had a title and there was only one per faction. So one Tauren, one Forsaken, one Dwarf, one Gnome, one Human, one Night Elf, etc. You guys get the gist of it. And all these people would have to compete for their rank. So that should be the only rank that decays. So you should only be able to hold that rank for a week and then you're locked out of it. And then you get a title saying ex-defender once you've been it before. Again, just the feature they could add, I think it would be cool. Moving on from that, they should add arenas to Classic Plus. Again, definitely not era, definitely not fresh. But for Classic Plus in particular, arenas would be a good feature. Maybe not on launch, but maybe by the time we finish Nax, they've been able to figure out a proper class balancing system that makes arenas viable. And if not arenas, rated battlegrounds would be a solid alternative and would be amazing. So again, I don't know what the devs are planning, but just these are my opinions on the survey so far. A lot of these are definitely a yes for Classic Plus and a definite no for Classic Era / Classic Fresh. Now though, we are moving on to part 2 of the survey. That's right, this video is obscenely goddamn long, and I'm not even sorry because we have to discuss everything. This next point is about revamping or adding new flight paths, new boats, and new Zepplins to the game. And in my honest opinion, absolutely. When they make Grimbatal a raid, when they make Hyjal a raid, when they make all these new locations, instances, and things available to the game, they're going to need new flight paths anyways. But adding a new Zeppelin tower or adding a new dock, adding a new little town to the world is something they should definitely do and would actually make the world feel more alive and flavorful. Stormwind should have its dock added back, and Orgrimmer's port should be used. Right now in game, nobody uses the Orgrimmar port. There's no boat going there. So just little things like that would make the game more flavorful. They should probably expand the Orgrimmar dock and then make the Stormwind dock bigger. And they should allow a lot of places to connect, maybe add a big Zeppelin tower somewhere. Maybe add Zeppelins for the Alliance as well. There's just a lot of little things they can do to just make the game feel better. Because at the end of the day, nobody really enjoys waiting 6 minutes for a boat or a Zeppelin or a 15-minute flight path all the way from Northern Kalimdor down to Southern Kalimdor. Now that is definitely a very classic feature, and a lot of people have for the longest time just lived with it. But making Classic Plus slightly more positive and friendly to players' time isn't a bad thing. Slightly less classic than classic, but this is meant to be Classic Plus. Again, so in my opinion, this one is definitely would make me very much more likely to play. Out of the 5 options I have, that's what I would personally take. The next one, adjusting item stacks, definitely for Classic Plus, no for Classic Era and Fresh. This is a huge quality of life feature. For example, being able to stack your potions higher, being able to stack certain currency rewards higher, being able to just stack things higher would be better. But it's not Classic. Classic is meant to be about difficulty and optimizing space and time. And that's one of Classic's biggest draws, is the game feeling more challenging. Not in terms of gameplay, but in terms of time and management. Personally, I'm a bit neutral on this because it does make the game personally easier, but I do think it is good for the game. So for me, this would be a 4 out of 5. More likely to play, but not really necessary. The next one, this one's an interesting one, Guild Finder. Right off the bat, I'm going to say, if they could actually make this system work, I'd be all for it. But in no version of Classic, in no version of World of Warcraft period in the story, does the Guild Finder even actually work. Nobody I know has actually found a guild using it. Nobody I know actually remembers joining a guild from that place and then staying there for longer than the leveling process. Pretty much everyone that uses the Guild Finder process does it by accident or on a random whim or out of boredom. If they can make the Guild Finder system actually work, I'd be all for this. But honestly, it just sounds like a waste of time and resources. People use Discord, people use the forums, people use in-game. no one's going to use the feature, even if they do make it work somehow. The next point, buffing / reducing the mana cost of group buffs and extending the timer of them. 100% do this. They should reduce the cost of group buffs by 50% mana, so instead of costing 2,000 mana or 1,000, it costs half. And they should extend the duration to 2 hours. That's all they need to do for this feature. That's period in the story. That makes it a good feature and a good change, 5 out of 5. If they do anything more to it, it becomes objective and questionable whether it's good for the game or not. Now, this very next one is going to be a straight no from me, and that's adding flying to Classic Plus. Now, don't get me wrong, flying would make the world so much easier to traverse, and everybody uses WoW summons anyway, but flying is not a classic feature, and it should not even be a Classic Plus feature. Again, I'm not completely against flying. There might be particular zones where flying is enabled, for example, old Outland being redone, having flying there, or maybe having a kind of a TBC-esque location where you can fly in it. I'm okay with that. But in terms of flying across Azeroth and Kalimdor, hard no. It trivializes the open world, removes PvP on a PvP server, and essentially begins the end of the open world connectivity. Now, a lot of Classic and WoW players in general are anti-social as is, so people would say, why does that matter? Because it just isn't Classic. And now for Classic Era and Fresh, we're not even going to discuss that. No, it's just not coming, it's not happening, we're not even going to talk about it. The next one is actually an interesting conversation though, is adding Chronoboon for world buffs. And at this point in time, if you're having world buffs in the game, Chronoboon has to be there, because it just makes life so much easier. But in my personal opinion, world buffs should be removed from Classic Plus. World buffs should not even be in Classic Plus. I don't like the world buffs feature. For Classic Era and Classic Fresh, it's already gonna be in there, we know that, so this doesn't even matter for that. But for Classic Plus, no Chronoboon, no world buff would be my vote. But if you have to add world buffs, sure, add Chronoboons. You need it to have that quality of life feature anyways. Now on to the next point, increasing the size of your quest log. Straight up, yes. Now, this is my personal opinion, but increasing the size of the quest log is a quality of life feature. It is not necessary, it is not needed. It's not really even a major thing. But I like to collect quests and do them sporadically and randomly. I don't like to just sit in a full zone, finish all 30, 40 quests back to back. I like to do 3 quests here, 5 quests there, 4 quests here. And having to delete a quest and then have to go pick it back up later is kind of annoying for me. So just based off that reason, yes to an increased quest log size. This next one though is controversial. Customizable HUD from retail. In the case of this one, I am actually for it, and I can explain why. I know people are going to go, what do you mean, how could you? I don't necessarily want the retail UI, but the retail UI removes the need for me to have Alv UI or a whole bunch of other UI add-ons. So having this feature in-game for Classic Plus is actually a good feature because it lets you play and move all your things around without having to use an external add-on. A lot of new players and returning players and whatnot have a hard time getting all the add-ons working again. So the less add-ons, the better in my opinion. So if Blizzard is going to do this, I would rather they straight up ban all add-ons on Classic Plus and improve the game's base UI to make up for that. Again, just my personal opinion, incredibly controversial, but it is what it is. And the final point, and the last one on this ginormous survey, instant mail between people. Instant mail between your alt and your guildies? Yes, because quality of life. Your guildies send shit each other all the time. Hey, I found this, do you need it? Hey, do you want this green? Hey, do you want this blue? Whatever. So yes to that. But between strangers, that 1 hour mailing time is honestly, I think it's okay. I don't think there's a big deal with it. Let people just mail shit to each other. Let it take an hour. Go do something IRL. Cook food for your kids or some shit. I don't know. So I have essentially covered the entire survey. And as I said, this is essentially Classic Plus. They are testing, thinking, trying to figure out all the little intricacies of what makes Classic Plus. And they've done this before. Every version of the previous versions of Classic that came out had a survey like this. And everybody said they're just questioning and they're just checking, they don't plan on making this, and then ta-da, they made it. And if you want more proof than that, they literally just took down Total WoW's private server stuff. The last time they did this was Nostalrius. They took down Nostalrius and then boom, we got Classic 2019. So just based off of that, I think we are getting Classic Plus. It might be November 2025, it might be November 2026. There might be another season in between now and Classic Plus. But we are essentially getting Classic Plus. So buckle the fuck down, get ready and excited. Classic Plus is on the way, and it honestly sounds pretty goddamn amazing. It might not be everybody's cup of tea, but Classic Plus has to be an innovative version of Classic. It's not TBC, it's not Wrath of the Lich King, and it's not Classic. It's Classic Plus. People have to realize that Plus contains a lot of energy and dictates what the future of the game is. Old school RuneScape is a continuation of RuneScape, and just based off of that, it should be a continuation and a regular evolving of the classic gameplay. So thank you all for watching. If you watched this long, subscribe. If you watched this long and you're not subscribed, why did you watch this goddamn long video? Nonetheless, thank you everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video. Love you all. Ebonheart out. Peace.